Hey everyone, this is Alisha Costanzo and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about my book stats for 2022. So hopefully this won't be too long of a video. I'm just going to go real quick through some of the numbers that I calculated and crunched for this specifically. Okay, so first of all, I read 148 books last year. Not more than some people that I have seen thinking about you books on Lala, like fucking A with your 200 and something books. I tried. It was more than last year, which I think was like 143 or 145 by a couple, but still, it's more. I'll actually put up on the screen my Goodreads scroll through and we'll talk a little bit about the numbers. Goodreads calculated that I did 49,133 pages, but I calculated that I did 50,386 pages, so I don't know who's right. You can kind of see just a large number of books that I read. They're listed up here, which is fantastic. While we're looking at those minutes I read, because I do track that, I listen mostly to audiobooks. I read 1,181 hours, 48 minutes and 43 seconds, and this amounts to a 49 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 43 seconds. 49 full days of reading for the year. That is fantastic. If you have to spend your life anyway, reading and writing, man. Reading and writing. Okay, so let's also look at what form I read these books in and some percentages, shall we? Physical books. I read a whole four physical books this year, which is about 2% of my reading. I read 27 ebooks, which is about 18% of my reading, and 117 audiobooks, which is about 80% of my reading. I tell you guys, I read audiobooks most of the time because I can do other stuff while I'm listening to them. It's the only reason I read as many books as I do, is because they're audiobooks and I can drive and do other, I can listen to it on the plane. And it's so much faster than me actually reading with my eyeballs. I'm not as great at that as I used to be. I don't really have the time for it much anymore, but sometimes the book gets me at the same time. So, I am trying to make more physical and ebooks a priority, but I don't know. I just don't know, Okay, genres. So I have my usual list of genres that I actually do for my book squares and my planner. I can show that to you guys. Real quick, here's a pick. All right, so my first category, I should say, is horror, and I read 6 horror books, and I mean, like, they're just plain horror, not anything else, and that's 4% of my reading. I read 63 fantasy, which is 43% of my reading, by far the largest number in here. I read 15 sci-fi, which is about 10%, 43 romance, and I mean just romance. Anything that was paranormal romance went into the fantasy category, so there's still a lot of romance in my other stuff. And that was 30%. 9 nonfiction books, which is 6%. 6 thrillers, which is 4%. 1.5 classics. I counted half of Moby Dick because it was a fucking long book and it was hard. It's less than 1% for classics. 1.5. The other book I read was... Now, just side note with classics, I read things like Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles and Dune. Those are technically considered classics of a kind. I mean, that just have no other category but classic is in this category. And then I read 5 that I would put in the other category, so typically like a contemporary or solely historical, that kind of thing, although a lot of my historicals are also mystery thrillers, so those went into those categories. And that was 3% of other. My star ratings this year, you can see that my Goodreads had, was it like 4.3 or something like that? I'm probably totally wrong. But I had a pretty high rating, and that's because I generally know what I like, and unless I'm challenging myself to read something, and therefore have to finish something I don't typically like, most of them I'm gonna like because I know what I like to read. So anyways, I had 6/7, I have it in parentheses, DNFs, one I didn't actually count on my Goodreads, which is about 4% DNFs. I had 1 1-star read, which is less than 1%, which is good. I had 5 2-stars, which is 3%. 19 3-stars, which is 13%. 52 4-stars, which is 35%. 58 5-stars, which is 39% in the highest category. So I gave 5 stars to the majority of my books, the highest percentage. And then I had 7 rereads, which is about 5%. Now on my little dealie here, which I haven't fully filled out yet, I do have a best and a worst book of the year. I do not know what my best favorite book of the year is. I figured that we could maybe figure that out together here on camera. I do know what my worst one was, and it was that lonely one star book. So I'm not counting the DNFs as the best or the worst, just because I didn't finish them. So I don't really feel like I have the right to call that the worst because I didn't finish it. But that one was Faded, and I think that's Rebecca Zanetti. Sorry girl, thought this book was a dumpster fire, and that is what my review says on it. And it's just not my thing. So I am going to flip you guys over to look back and forth with me on my stats, which have my favorite books on here. And we're gonna figure out what book's the best book of the year, and maybe give some reasons as to why. Okay, let's turn you around. Please excuse the messiness that you can't really, I guess, see, but yes. Okay, let's start up here. We're gonna do them 2 at a time. We're gonna pin them against each other. So if I had to pick between Ninth House and the Martian Chronicles, oh God, I'm starting myself off with a excellent, difficult choice. Oh my God. This has so much in it that is just fantastic. However, there were parts of it where I was like, because there's just that in the book. This was also fantastic in the first in the series. And how do you justify going against Ray Bradbury? Like, this is difficult. Okay. This was a reread. And I feel like I need to reread. This one had all the things that I like though. So I really want to say, I'm going with it. Ninth House is the winner out of those 2. Let's go to our next 2 months, which is Soulmate Equation and The Little Thieves. This should be a little harder than it is, but I'm gonna go with Little Thieves just because it was a new retelling that I've never done, new author, and I just really liked, it gave me all the things that I wanted, and I remember that. Okay. These 2, man, both kind of romances. That's kind of a romance, kind of not a romance. I'm gonna go with Emily Henry. Oh shit, look, oh my gosh, okay. Holly Black is one of my favorite authors. Leigh Bardugo I've read 2 books of. However, this book specifically left me in such a state of awe. I'm gonna have to go with this one. Okay, Shadow and Bone. And forgive me, I do not have my sticker for this guy, but between these 2, hands down, Hating Game. I read it twice in a row. I can't wait to read it again. Oh, Hating Game. And then we have Nettle and Bone, and this would be Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. And I'm actually going to go with Nettle and Bone. It was nice and weird, and it just did a lot of the things that I really like. Okay, now let's pin these 2 against each other. Man, again, because this did so many things that I liked too. Fuck me. Instincts. What are my instincts saying? Instincts are saying Little Thieves, so we'll go with that one. Okay, Little Thieves on this page. These 2, it's gonna be Shadow and Bone again. So, yes. And these 2, man, really liked that book too. I'm gonna go with Hating Game. I don't know how else to do it. Okay, so we have Hating Game, Shadow and Bone, Little Thieves. I think actually if I look at all 3 of those, oh my God. I'm gonna say it's between Shadow and Bone and The Hating Game. Now here's the hard part. Shadow and Bone did all the things that I think a fantasy should do. The whole good and evil, the whole introducing us to a new world, the underdog, the world building, the best, it did all of the things. It did all of the things I think it should do, right? But this book had me obsessed while I was reading it, after I read it, when I read it again, and even now, my dad shipped me my version of it. I can't wait to read it physically too. It's still in my head. Oh my God, how do I pick between those 2 things? Okay, we're gonna call it this. I'm actually gonna give The Hating Game my favorite spot just because I enjoyed it more probably than any other book and become obsessed and was just like that reason. Just the plain enjoyment, not any of the technical whatever stuff. However, if I were to kind of summarize or exemplify what I thought my perfect book would be as a fantasy reader, it would be this book. Oh, so can I really justify that? Like, oh man, I've decided I have to. The Hating Game is going to be my best book of the year. I don't know why that makes me feel so shameful, because I'm a fantasy reader and I've only recently started to read contemporary romances and enjoy them. But there's something about this book. Okay, well there we have it. God, y'all, why do I feel so much shame about not putting Shadow and Bone as my favorite book? But if I go down to just like my feelings while reading a book, see, that's hard too, because like I listened to it twice and I actually read Shadow and Bone with my eyeballs obsessively in a day. Can I have a tie? Is that allowed? Oh my God. Okay, I keep going back and forth, so once I have time to marinate on this, here's the book that is my favorite. Here it is. Oh my God. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I need to tell you guys, because, like, honestly, that's pretty much that's what I read in 2022. Those are my numbers. Ooh, let's pick. This one is gonna be my favorite cover. And that one's gonna be my least favorite cover. Let's have some honorable mentions in there. My favorite new to me author is gonna be this one. And then the person I read the most books from this year is gonna be here. Is there anything else? Here's the book I tried to read the most times and failed. And yeah, guys, I think that's gonna be all for me today. So stay tuned for my writing stats from 2022. Spoiler, there's a lot of numbers there. So I will see you again next time. Let me know how your reading went in 2022. And bye.